Welcome back, history lovers. Tonight, we're not talking about the usual royal crowns, dazzling jewels, or epic battles. No, today, we re-peeling back the velvet curtain to reveal something far stranger, the bizarre ways kings and queens actually died. You might think royals would go with dignity surrounded by loyal subjects, whispering final words of wisdom. But in truth, many of them met their end in ways so weird, tragic, or downright absurd, you'll hardly believe they're real. From an Egyptian pharaoh who poisoned herself with her own skincare, to a Chinese emperor who drank immortality juice made of mercury, to a Spanish king who literally laughed himself to death, and even a Greek monarch whose fatal enemy was a monkey bite. These stories show that fate has a twisted sense of humor. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at royal history the same way again. Hatshepsut, the pharaoh who died from lotion in ancient Egypt, Hatshepsut was one of the most powerful women ever to rule. She crowned herself pharaoh, depicted in statues as a man with a false beard, and reigned over an age of prosperity. But her end was anything but glorious. After 22 years on the throne, she died suddenly at 50. For centuries, people suspected her stepson, Thutmose III, murdered her to seize power. But modern science revealed the truth. She died of bone cancer, caused by her very own skincare routine. Archaeologists discovered a jar of lotion among her belongings. It contained nutmeg, palm oil, and tar residue. While tar soothed skin conditions, it was carcinogenic like cigarette tar today. In trying to treat her eczema, Hatshepsut slowly poisoned herself. Egypt's great female pharaoh wasn't killed by swords or assassins, but by lotion. Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who drank mercury, the first emperor of China, dreamed of living forever. To achieve this, he commanded alchemists to create an elixir of life. The recipe? Wine, honey, and mercury. Instead of granting immortality, it drove him insane, causing tremors, confusion, and finally death at 49. His ministers, terrified of rebellion, hid his death by dressing his corpse daily in trailing wagons of rotting fish to mask the smell as they transported his body home. Ironically, Qin Shi Huang had already built himself an eternal resting place, a massive underground mausoleum guarded by the famous terracotta army. Legends say rivers of liquid mercury still flow inside his tomb, deadly proof of the poison that killed him. Valerian, the emperor who drank molten gold. Valerian was the only Roman emperor ever captured alive by a foreign power. In battle, he fell into the hands of King Shapur, the first of Persia. What followed was humiliation. Sources claim Shapur used Valerian as a human footstool whenever he mounted his horse. When Valerian begged for release, offering ransom, Shapur allegedly mocked him with a death both symbolic and gruesome, pouring molten gold down his throat. Historians debate if this tale is true or propaganda. But the story endures. Rome's proud emperor, choked by the very wealth his empire craved. But before we jump in, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We bring you strange, dark, and fascinating stories from history every single week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. All right, ready? Let's dig up the 10 most bizarre royal deaths in history. Fausta, the empress boiled alive. Fausta, wife of Constantine the Great, lived at the heart of scandal. Constantine had a son, Crispus, from a previous relationship. Rumors spread of an affair, or perhaps a false accusation, between Crispus and Fausta. The result? Crispus was executed by poison, and Fausta herself was locked in a heated bathhouse until the water scalded her to death. No one knows the full truth. Some say Fausta seduced Crispus, others that she falsely accused him. Still others suggest she tried to abort a pregnancy with an overheated bath and miscalculated. Whatever the case, the Empress's end was horrific. Boiled alive in her own palace. Henry I of England, killed by a fish. King Henry I loved lampreys, an eel-like fish considered a delicacy. His doctors warned him not to overindulge. But one night in Normandy, he ignored them and feasted. Shortly after, he fell violently ill, likely from lamprey toxins or food poisoning. For a week, he suffered agonizing cramps and purging before finally dying in 1135. The aftermath was just as messy. With his only son drowned in a shipwreck years earlier, Henry's death triggered a brutal succession crisis known as the Anarchy. A dynasty thrown into chaos all because a king couldn't resist his favorite fish. Prince Philip of France, killed by a pig. In 1131, young Prince Philip, son of King Louis VI, was already crowned co-king with his father. Arrogant and headstrong, he seemed destined to rule. But while riding through Paris, a black pig suddenly darted from a dung heap. His horse stumbled, throwing Philip violently to the ground. At just 15 years old, the heir to the French throne was dead. His brother, Louis VII, became king instead. Louis's disastrous marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine would later change the course of European history. In the end, a single pig altered the destiny of a kingdom. Charles II of Navarre. Death by brandy and fire. Charles II of Navarre, nicknamed the Bad, was notorious for betrayal and cruelty. In later life, crippled by illness, he was prescribed nightly wraps of linen soaked in brandy. One evening, a seamstress sewing him into the sheets brought a candle too close. The brandy-soaked cloth ignited, and the king went up in flames. The seamstress fled in terror as Charles burned alive. The treacherous monarch, who spent his life betraying allies, ended it as a human torch. Martin of Aragon, the king who laughed himself to death. King Martin of Aragon had gout, indigestion, and grief. He had outlived all his children, but he still loved a good joke. One night, after eating an entire goose, he summoned his jester. The jester told a silly story about a donkey stealing figs. Martin laughed and laughed for 3 straight hours until he collapsed and died still chuckling. Doctors suggest his laughter triggered a heart attack, but in the chronicles, he remains the king who literally died of laughter. Adolf Frederick of Sweden, the king who ate himself to death in 1771, Adolf Frederick of Sweden indulged in a meal so massive it became legend. Lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, herring, champagne, and 14 cream-filled pastries swimming in hot milk. Moments later, the obese king keeled over, dead at 60. Today, Swedes remember him not for politics or wars, but simply as the king who ate himself to death. Alexander of Greece, the king killed by a monkey. King Alexander ruled Greece briefly during World War I. His father and brother had been forced into exile, leaving him a powerless puppet king. One October afternoon in 1920, he took his dog Fritz for a walk. Suddenly, a palace gardener's pet monkey attacked. Alexander tried to separate them, but the monkey bit him repeatedly. At first, the wounds seemed minor, but infection spread, and within weeks, sepsis set in. Delirious, Alexander called for his mother, but the government, fearing political chaos, refused to let her return. At just 27, Alexander died. His death sparked a succession crisis that altered Greek politics and indirectly shaped the life of his nephew, Prince Philip, future husband of Queen Elizabeth II. A king brought down not by armies, but by a monkey's bite. Outro. And there you have it, 10 of the strangest royal deaths ever recorded. From fish and pigs to lotion and laughter, these stories remind us that no matter how powerful, wealthy, or untouchable a ruler may seem, death always finds a way, and often in the most unexpected of forms. So tell me, which of these bizarre royal deaths shocked you the most? Was it the monkey bite, the boiling bath, or the king who ate himself into the grave? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this wild ride through history, Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss the next dark, dramatic, and unbelievable story from the past. Thanks for watching. And remember, history isn't just dates and battles. It's also strange, ironic, and sometimes hilarious tales like these.